Book Time with Ryan. I am Ryan, and today I will be talking about ADHD is Awesome by Penn and Kim Holderness. A guide to mostly thriving with ADHD. My mom gave me this. Why? Why, Ryan? You don't have ADHD, do you? Well, I'll let you in on a little secret. I do. I do have ADHD. I generally say I have ADD. Why? Because when I was diagnosed, there was still a differentiation between ADD and ADHD, and I didn't like the H part of ADHD. I still really don't. ADHD, attention deficit hyperactivity disorder, ADD, attention deficit disorder. I wasn't hyper. I pretty much am not hyper. I don't have hyperactivity. And when I think about hyperactivity, I go back to, I don't even know what year this was. I just remember this kid that I used to play with. I traded my Star Trek toys to him for his, like, the little gummy toys that came with the Ghostbuster figures. It was a bad trade. It's a bad trade. And one time we were over there, and just impulsively, to be funny, he peed in his basement on the floor. And in my mind, that's what I think of with hyperactivity. There may have been other stuff going on there, but it was pretty impulsive, and he was a hyper dude. So this was an interesting book for me to read, and I'm not going to edit this book down, I'm not going to see. You're going to see that I said that because I'm not going to edit this video. I'm just going to leave it the way it is because we're going to get into some experiences and feelings or whatever, and we'll just let it fly. I think that for this kind of book, for this kind of review, I think is more helpful. So you can kind of see that I don't have it put together, and I don't know exactly how I feel about ADD. And I got diagnosed 35 years ago. I mean, I'm 41. I just turned 41. I just had my birthday. Well, you got me this because she thought it looked like me. This represents me. And she also gave me a gingerbread man, a gingerbread girl that she said looked like her. So that's cool. That's upstairs. I've had it a long time. I mean, I guess forever, but I dealt with a diagnosis a long time ago, and I'll share just a little bit of what I've gone through and my feelings and what I still deal with now. But before we get into some of that, which I'll try to apply to the book, this book's in 3 parts. I really like the way they did this book. It's color-coded. I don't think it's color-coded in any way. Each chapter has a different color. And the chapters are broken up pretty nicely. So it's not huge chunks of text. It's not unbearably long kind of stuff. There's these little boxes that pop up in the middle of the text that kind of have a little aside. I really like there's like these random little comments here and there from Penn a lot of times, and sometimes from Kim, they're good. They kind of break it up a little bit. The coloring really helps too, just because you're like, hey, I'm in the green part. When's the next new color? So it's broken up into 3 parts, and those 3 parts are getting to know ADHD, changing the narrative, and thriving with ADHD. I will say that really the first part was not a big change. No, that's not true. See, I get used to really like cutting when I say out, and because I'm trying not to do that in this, it's gonna be messier. Sorry. All right. What we follow Penn mostly. This is mostly Penn. Penn and Kim Holderness have their own channel and different social media accounts and a big following. I had not watched their channel before. I have now. I watched a couple videos before I filmed this, and they're funny. I think I thought they were somebody else. I don't know. Anyway, I watched it, so I have an idea of what they produce. But they do a lot of. They have their own production company. They do stuff at home, different from what I experience in my job. But Penn has ADHD, and when is this book from? He was diagnosed, I think, 20 years ago, which is probably nice. So, where is that? Here we go. 2024. Wow. That's very current. Penn and Kim are not doctors. They are not psychiatrists. They're not psychologists. They don't have a degree in ADHD training, I guess, if that's a thing. Penn has ADHD. He was diagnosed, I believe, 20 years ago, since this is current. And Kim does not have ADHD. Kim does not have ADHD. She has some anxiety, which isn't really addressed in this book much. But Kim deals with an ADHD husband, and I have a wife. So I know there are things that I do that I am unaware of or don't appreciate how they affect her all the time. Fortunately, my wife will tell me, and we've dealt with that. So, and I'll bring up some of that. I don't want to say Penn has it worse than me, but Penn talks about how ADHD is on a spectrum. And on that spectrum, I believe that my ADHD, my ADD, is not as severe, not as affecting in my life as Penn's, just from the way he describes his experiences. My ADHD really is attention heavy. It's like, and it's hard to explain. I need to find, over the years, I've figured out ways to compensate for it. And a lot of that is, some of it's medicine. I take Ritalin. Some of it is being in the right place to be productive, doing things at the right time, knowing what will distract me. And for instance, I telework a lot. This is the room I telework from. I have a record player, and that also plays CDs. And I have this CD, piano. There's actually 2 CDs in there. Oh yeah, it says 2 discs. Piano, the most relaxing album in the world ever. And it is. I don't even know how I found this, but I generally keep disc 2 in. I think there's like, disc 1 might be scratched or something. Yeah, there's a little bit of, not advertised when I bought it, but it skips or something. But I like the songs better on disc 2 anyway. So that helps me stay focused. Obviously the medicine helps. And closing the door, just being away. When COVID started and I started working from home, I didn't work in this room, and I was pretty distracted. And it really took kind of nesting in here for me to remove some of that distraction. I was diagnosed probably in the 1st or 2nd grade, and it was a double-blind test. Which is that right? I don't know. Basically, I had pills. Some of them were filled with, they were capsules. Some of them had the medicine. Some of them are placebo. And was there a difference? Yeah, there's definitely a difference. I don't realize how much of a difference there is until I don't take it for a while, and then I kind of get used to putting things off. Why didn't I take it for a while? Well, I was in the Coast Guard. I went to the Coast Guard Academy, and one of the things that you can't be on, and you have to show a year of being able to produce and achieve without medicine, Ritalin, a stimulant, or the kind of the allowances that you have with a plan at your school, extra time or taking it in private or whatever, for tests. You had to have a year of that, off of that. And my grades suffered a little bit. I mean, I was a good student, but my senior year, my grades suffered a little bit. I had to be off Ritalin for a year. I don't 100% know if that's all because I was off medicine or because I had senioritis. I don't know. But that set me up for going to the Coast Guard Academy. And I could not be on Ritalin at the Coast Guard Academy. I could not be on Ritalin when I was in the Coast Guard for 5 years after I graduated from the academy. And I don't think I appreciated how hard it was, because it just felt like that's how it always was. Until I started taking it after I got out and I was an adult and in a workplace, and was noticing that I was distracted and having trouble starting, and I started taking it again, and it would really focus me a lot more. That's where I notice it. Where my wife also notices it is when I drive. If I haven't taken anything, this is not something where you just pop it. Like, there's a schedule that you would take it on because it wears off. But if I drive and I haven't taken Ritalin, I want to look at everything. Like, I'm distracted while I drive. It's not distracted driving. I guess it is, kind of. But I want to see what's going on around me. I'm still aware of what's going on the road, but she notices that. And if I do take it, then I'm not doing that. So that's an example, I guess. I do forget things. I don't forget things like Penn doesn't when he's talking about leaving his keys certain places, or just dropping things in the middle of where they're not supposed to be. But I do sometimes. I don't pick up stuff, or I don't recognize that there's a mess where there might be a mess. And I don't know if that's just me or if that is the ADHD. I don't know. Yeah, so I read see, and I don't plan. So I read this book, and there were moments where I felt like Penn's symptoms were exhausting. The stuff, the one that stood out that I talked to my wife about was he was at the beach. His wife was doing something at home. He was at a beach 2 hours away with his kids for the weekend or something, and they were getting ready to go, and he lost his keys. And he kind of panicked, and he was like, what do I do? And eventually he decided he had to call her, and he knew he was letting her down, and she was not happy, but she drove 2 hours to pick them up or help them access the car or whatever. And when she got there, she found the keys on the top of the car. He just didn't realize that. That would be pretty frustrating, I think, for a spouse. And there's just a number of things that he said that he has dealt with, that as I was reading, I was like, has he really found a way to deal with these symptoms? Because some of the things he's describing would really get in the way of life. Or does he just think or is he doing better? Or does he think he's doing better? Is he actually doing better? I don't know. Like, I'm kind of getting it from the book, and it's hard to know when he's talking about what he's done in the past. Are these things that he feels like he's conquered now, or are they still ongoing issues? Because I will tell you, as somebody with ADHD, I worry about sometimes how it affects people around me. Like, is it exhausting to deal with me? There are times where I can really feel the ADD. And I'm going to try to do something post-production. Maybe like for the next minute, what I'm going to do is try to find a couple songs, layer on to what I'm saying, and make them a little bit louder than what I'm saying, and just have those things going on. So we're going to start that now. And this is how it works. Maybe I'll say it more comments. But there are times when I go out and I can't follow anything people are saying at my table. I just can't. I know I can't. And it's because I hear everything else. And I know what's going on a couple tables away. And I'm hitting that conversation, and I don't want to, but I just can't focus. I'm having a deficit in the attention that I am giving the people at my table. So if you had trouble hearing what I was saying just then, focusing on what I was saying versus the music or whatever else I picked to go over this, that is how it feels sometimes. It's been 30 or 35 years since I've been diagnosed. And in that time, I think I know things that I struggle with and things that I don't. Maybe not everything. I know what I would find frustrating, and I'm sure I do things that are frustrating that I'm not aware of too. My mom's a guidance counselor. My dad's a medical doctor. They have, some experience dealing with this stuff in their professional fields, kind of more so my mom than my dad since he's an emergency room doctor. But, my mom gave me this book, so there you go. She was reading it before me. I know at this point in my life, I know. And there are things I can do, like take Ritalin before I go on a long drive with my wife and kid. I think what was interesting about reading this book for me is, as a father, thinking about if my kid has ADHD. I think parents, they don't want their kids to slide through or skate through life easily. You want them to have things that build them, right? But you also don't want your kid to have extra burdens. And when I was reading this book, I thought there was a really good section about people who deal with people with ADHD, parents, family, spouses, whatever. That I felt was very helpful. And there was a moment where Penn said, if I could change it all and have a brain that doesn't function, that doesn't have ADHD involved at all, would he do it? And he said no. And I was sitting there thinking, I would. What have I gained? And that's hard to know because it's you. You have this. Whether somebody diagnoses you with it or not, you have it. And you don't know any other way of really thinking or doing things. There's great stuff in this book that talks about some of the benefits of having a brain that's wired for ADHD, faulty wire. So there's plenty of that. I'm sure some of that applies. I mean, look, I have a, there is no way to say this without sounding like a douche. I have a good IQ. I have been creative. I generally think outside the box about a lot of things, and I like taking a devil's advocate approach to things that we're dealing with. Not necessarily because I want to be in the way, but because once we've thought through something from multiple angles, it helps coming up with a plan that's, I think, more viable if you've addressed certain things that could be issues. I don't know if that is strengthened with a brain like mine that has ADD, or if that would have existed anyway. I mean, there's some thought that because a lot of people with ADHD are smart, that it's hard to detect sometimes because they're smart enough to compensate. They're smart enough to get past some of those limitations. They can still perform. They may be putting more effort into that. They may not be aware that they're putting more effort into it, because how do you really monitor the effort of other people around you? But they do enough right that people around them don't know that they're suffering or that they're experiencing other challenges with an ADHD life. And I don't know. It's hard to know. But when I read that he wouldn't change it, I really started thinking, maybe that's more of the mindset I need to have now. Like I told you, I got my diagnosis 30 or 35 years ago. At this point in my life, it's just a part of stuff. Like, it's not anything that was like, oh my gosh, it dawned on me that I'm experiencing this, and now I know why. Like, I knew from an early age because of that diagnosis. I can't remember why I reacted the way I did. It could have been something else, but well, it was either ADHD, ADD, or a learning disability. But I remember being told by my parents that I had something and feeling worthless and broken and crushed. And really, it was my parents talking to me that changed that. But they were also in a position to know, what this meant, do their own research, have some background in this too. And I think I benefited from that. So, I've had this around. I think now as a parent, with a kid that's in first grade now, a really smart kid, really sensitive, really in tune with so much, that something that I've pretty much accepted myself just because it's just the way it's been, is something that if it ever comes up as a parent, I need to move past thinking, I wish my kid didn't have to deal with any extra burden. Just kind of accept the way I've accepted it myself, and Penn, I think, accepts it for himself, that this is just part of who they are. And some things they'll be challenged by, sometimes they won't be challenged, but they also have a lot of other stuff that's very positive, that you'll experience too. I'm not a bubble wrap parent or a helicopter parent. I want my kid to have a good life. So, we're not there. But there are certainly things in this book that I read as a parent that 7 years ago would have just kind of would have not had any impact because I didn't have a kid. I think one of the really important things that I really appreciate, especially towards the end, was Kim's input. Because there are times where you're hearing Penn's side of things and you're like, geez, how does Kim deal with this shit all the time. How does she not lose it? And I felt like Kim's parts, her notes were very honest and straightforward. And she does lose it sometimes, and she gets really annoyed. And I think some of it is not only realizing what challenges you have as somebody with ADD or ADHD, but also realizing that there's things that you can do to fix it or mitigate it. And no matter what you do, the actions that you take may affect those around you. And ADHD is not an excuse for having those actions or slip-ups. It's really good, I think, to get the opinion or the point of view of somebody who deals with the people dealing with this, because when you have it, it is sometimes hard to appreciate how it affects people around you. A brief example. I was at a dog park with Sammy, our dog, and this dog, and Noelia was there too. It was after school or on the weekend or something. Diane was working, went to the dog park, and this truck pulled up, old truck, and it had this dog barking out the side. It's like a coon hound. And boom, memory from when Noelia was playing soccer, and this truck would drive by all the fields on this main road, and you would just hear this dog barking. And it was always like, wow, that dog is having a good time. I don't know where they're going or who that is or anything. That dog is having a good time. So I heard this car pull up, different area, pretty far removed from, 15, 20 minutes removed from where the soccer practices and games were. And I was like, hey, I'm not going to go through the whole conversation, but basically established that this was the same dog. I was like, wow. And then at the same time, that night, we were ordering food. It was a Friday this wasn't a Friday. I guess this was like the next week. We ordered from this pizza place in Manassas called Tony's, and there's a thing that Diane likes there. And when she asked for it, I was like, can you just text it to me so I can start the drive, put in the order, and then when I get there, it'll be pretty close to being ready. And it hurt her that I didn't remember what her order was, because she felt like it just wasn't important to me. And there's so many things that I do that just don't register. And I don't know if that's the ADD, but there are things in this book that alluded to stuff like that kind of made me think maybe it was part of that. But what we deal with as people with ADD or ADHD or whatever, people around us are dealing with too. And really the families and the friends are the ones that are on the front lines of dealing with anything that you do that you're embarrassed by, that you struggle with. And I really thought that Kim's parts in this book were really helpful to kind of get an eye for somebody who was being honest with being a supportive spouse and also getting annoyed by certain things and not shying away from that. And trying to make you understand that there are things that Penn struggles with, but those struggles are no excuse to give up on those things. And those struggles are not a free pass to have the struggles. Like it's all about improving and kind of bettering the situation for yourself and understanding what your symptoms are, what the triggers are for symptoms, and working beyond that. For me, I think I've done a lot of that. It's not perfect. It doesn't go away. But there are things I've done that I think mitigate it for the people around me and for myself. And I do feel like on the spectrum of ADHD, I am not as affected or severe as what Penn describes. And I don't have the hyperactive part. So it's really an attention piece that I think a lot of people can't see. And that can make it hard, but it's been 35 years of dealing with this. So I kind of know how it feels. I like this book. I thought the design of the book was great. The way it's broken up into smaller chapters, they're very straightforward. There's funny asides. There was a moment where Penn mentions blood vessels in a blue whale, that you can swim through them, how big they are. I do think that there are very large arteries around a blue whale's heart, but there's not as much room as people have been led to believe. I did go to the Whaling Museum in New Bedford, and they have a model blue whale heart there, and you can't really, it's not like swimming. You might be able to like squeeze in if you're little and move around. It would probably not be comfortable or make you feel good about yourself, but they're not huge vessels that you can just swim in, like that movie where people will shrink down and go through the bloodstream. What is that movie? What is that movie? Somebody tell me. I don't remember. But so there's like, he mentions that, and then I'm sitting there thinking like, well, I don't know. And then there's this little note after that paragraph that was like, you're probably still thinking about swimming in blue whale vests. And I was like, holy shit, I am thinking about it. I'm still reading. I'm still thinking about that. Yeah, so there were things like that. I just liked the way it was broken up. I liked the coloring for the different chapters and different sections, the way big sections were kind of broken down into little post-it note kind of things, and Kim's comments were interspersed with kind of the main Penn information. So you're like, okay, Penn, but what does Kim say? And then you would get a Kim box that would kind of give more information. It's nice to have some verification or somebody to kind of recount something from a different angle, from a different point of view. So I liked it. I gave it 4 stars, which for a nonfiction book is very, very good. Just a cool book, and I didn't realize it was so new. So thanks to my mom for giving it to me. Thanks to Penn and Kim for putting yourselves out there and letting us experience a little what you go through as a couple. One with ADHD, one with somebody with ADHD. I think it's a good book if you know somebody with ADHD. If you're a parent and your kid may. One of the things that it says in there is that if you have ADHD, there's a 50% chance that one of your parents has it. I don't think it works the other way. If you have ADHD, I don't think there's a 50% chance that your offspring will have it. Those are not the same thing. But if you have somebody in your life that has it, there's a lot of good stuff in here. If you have it, I think there's a lot of, it's not doom and gloom, and it's not peppy, rah-rah, whatever. I mean, even in the subtitle, it says mostly. Why won't this focus? Mostly. So there are times where you won't thrive. It's life. Don't worry about it. Anyway, thanks for being here today. Hopefully this wasn't too painful without editing out my uhs and ums and brief stops where I'm trying to think and whatever. I tried to keep it flowing, but I think you'll see from this that it doesn't flow smoothly without editing certain things out. And I am excited to see how that part is going to come out, where I'm going to layer on a couple other audio files and see if it's difficult for you to understand what I'm saying. So thanks, and I will talk to you later. Have a good one. Bye. Squirrel!